This morning, Vice President Joe Biden may be looking in his rearview mirror to see one particular 2020 contender gaining on him. There's a new Fox News poll that shows Elizabeth Warren is picking up momentum. Biden's still up with Democratic voters. Candidate of choice, 31% of voter support there. Warren, though, now just 11 points behind him, followed by Bernie Sanders, then Senator Kamala Harris. At his rally last night, President Trump seemed to make it clear that he's noticed Warren's rising popularity.
Elizabeth Warren. I did the Pocahontas thing. I hit her really hard, and it looked like she was down and out, but that was too long ago. I should have waited, but don't worry. We will revive it. It can be revived. It can be right?
I'm joined now by Leah Daughtry, CEO of the Democratic National Convention Committee. She's also at the inaugural Black Church Presidential Candidate Series in Atlanta this morning. And with me on set here in New York, Tiffany Cross, co-founder, managing editor of The Beat DC. If you don't subscribe, you should check it out. But Leah, let me start with you there in Atlanta first. I want to get your feedback on the event there in a moment. But first, though, you just heard the president there renewing his attacks on Elizabeth Warren. Is that as good a sign as any that she is now being viewed as a serious threat on the campaign trail?
I think it's the best sign. You know, the president is engaging in his usual politics of personal attacks, and the fact that he's now set his sights on Senator Warren would seem to indicate that he is concerned about her rise and concerned about her candidacy.
Sanders there, as you saw, flipping 5 points in the poll among Democratic voters. In a hypothetical matchup, though, Leah, against President Trump, he's got a pretty noteworthy lead. In fact, all of the leading Democratic contenders bested the sitting president in that Fox News poll that we just showed a few moments ago. Does that present a problem for Joe Biden, whose argument from the start was, if you want someone who can knock out Donald Trump, you have to vote for me?
You know, I think Democrats and really Americans of all walks of life are really ready for a change and ready to get rid of this divisiveness and the rhetoric that our president is exhibiting every single day. So I think this is a case of vote blue no matter who. You know, and every candidate has to put their best foot forward, be very intentional about their policies and about the practices that they are instituting in their campaigns and what they are presenting to the American people as options. People want to change. People want to feel that the American dream is within their reach, and that they, you know, are involved in a community of American citizens who are all striving for the same things. The president has been anathema to that, the exact opposite. And so all our candidates have to do is present their best vision, present their best proposals, their best plans, and I think any one of them, as the poll showed this morning, can beat Donald Trump.
Stand by for me, Leah. Just a moment. I want to talk to you about the candidates who are going to be there in Atlanta. But Tiffany, what continues to fascinate me specifically, South Carolina, in part because I'm from South Carolina, but Joe Biden's support with black voters in the Palmetto State right now. There's a Post and Courier poll out right now. I want to make sure I get this right. He's leading by 30 points, 30 percentage points with black voters there specifically. How is when you've got a Senator Harris, you've got a Cory Booker, how is it that Joe Biden has managed to hold on to such a lead there in the Palmetto State?
So I think a lot of this, quite honestly, is name recognition. But we can't forget that Joe Biden actually has deep roots in South Carolina, as you know. I mean, he has a home there. He vacationed there for years. And he was the vice president to the first black president. And so I think that does carry weight. And I think a lot of people who participate in these polls, specifically in South Carolina, are older black voters. And so those folks do tend to have more of an antiquated outlook on politics. And they think their idea of electability is not always in sync with the rising majority of the country, some of the younger voters. And a lot of the younger voters, when they look at Obama's presidency and the policies, it wasn't such an anomaly for them. That's their floor, where it's some of the older voters' ceiling. So they look at Joe Biden as somebody who, you know, could actually get something done. That's not necessarily true or false. I mean, there are other people in the field. Let me just say quickly also, you talked about Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. Listen, I think, you know, these are two great candidates, but you do have to consider, particularly with Kamala Kamala Harris, a lot of people assume that a lot of black voters, particularly black women voters, would immediately fall under her camp. While she's a formidable contender in this race, think about her background and her story.
As a prosecutor?
Well, not just a prosecutor, but even her pedigree, so to speak. So when she's talking to people about being an HBCU graduate, belonging to the first black sorority, there are plenty of spaces in this country where you go and talk to groups of black people about private colleges and sororities, and they don't connect. That doesn't resonate with them. So she's had to tell a different story and has to explain her prosecutorial record, but also introduce policy that speaks to some of the working class members of the black community and the community at large, quite frankly.
Well, how do we explain Cory Booker's struggle with black voters specifically?
So I think with Senator Booker, we were both in Miami for the National Association of Black Journalists, and I had the chance to interview him. And I think one of his challenges is, while people want to see someone on stage who can beat Donald Trump, they want to see a fight. Cory Booker has championed this message of love, and love can conquer all. Well, a lot of people, not just in the black community, but across the country, know that wars are not won by love. They're won with fight. And if you can't say unequivocally and unapologetically that this president is a racist, he's a white supremacist, if your answer is, well, I don't know what's in his heart, that will, I think, put a gap between you and a lot of voters across the country. But I think recently he has been throwing punches. So I do think he's seen that people want to see more of a fight from him.
Hey, Leah, 5 of the 2020 candidates are talking to black church leaders there, Millennials today, tomorrow at the Black Church Presidential Candidate Conversation Series. What do voters there in Atlanta want to hear from these candidates?
Well, you know, we are gathered here at the Young Leaders Conference, 5,000 black church millennials, to hear from these candidates, the 5 of the 20, as you've said. And what we're here to do is to really judge the candidates or hear what they have to say about the issues that concern us from our particular viewpoint as people of faith, the values and the principles that guide us around how we care for our neighbor, welcome the stranger. And so we're going to be talking about those issues. How are we feeding people? How are we clothing people? How are we building community in this time and this age when community is hard to find? And what about the issues, the pocketbook issues that affect so many, student loan debt, gentrification, and rising housing prices, health care? These are issues that are concerned to us because of our vantage point of faith. But of course, we have a particular lens as black faith people who are disproportionately impacted by issues of gun violence, by issues of over-policing. And so that's what we want to hear the candidates address today. And we're very excited to have them here at this first of its kind forum.
Leah, thank you. Thanks as always for your time. Good luck there in Atlanta at the forum. Tiffany, stay with me. Don't go too far.